guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome to my how-to video on how to assemble my Madison Mingle project, which if you're at the Mingle would be project number 20. We just walk through what you get and you get a bunch of stuff in here. So there's going to be a large and a small lemon die cut. Let's set those here. You're going to get two hellos. One is in blue, one is in navy. You're going to get two longer lemon pieces of pattern paper and two shorter ones, a small white rectangle, and then sort of your standard card mat, and some sequins if you choose to use these. These weren't actually used in the example card, so just FYI. They were kind of added as an extra thought, afterthought, as I found some sequins that really matched really well. But let me just grab the example card and my box, and we'll just work through this from the instructions. And here we go. Let me just pull the example card out of its little baggie. And as you can see, the paper for this one was slightly different, but this is what we're going to wind up with at the end. So the first thing we're going to do is work on the inside. The first two steps are basically to stamp the lemon in navy and the sentiment in black or navy or whatever you want. Um, I kind of like the look of the black because I think it's easier to read, but that's just me. And this lemon takes up a lot of room. So if you wanted to if you wanted to sort of stamp off a little bit, you could do that as well. So it's really up to you depending on what you find most aesthetically pleasing. So let's start out. Let's look at our instructions. It says the first thing to do is to stamp the lemon in navy. So I'm going to grab my navy. Go with a brand new ink pad. I picked up a brand new ink pad because mine looked pretty run over. So I was kind of like, I'll be nice to the folks and make sure we're working on something that works like that. There we go. Um, so I'm just going to replicate the example card. Just going to stamp down, give it a little good pressure, and we are good. And I'm just going to clean off my stamp quickly. You can do this with whatever medium you prefer. I kind of like just using a baby wipe, but that's also because this is dye ink, so it cleans off with water relatively easily. There we go. Just grab our sentiment block. Um, I tend to like VersaFine Clear, but you can stamp in whatever you want. Oh, I guess I should mention if you haven't played with these Catherine Pooler ink pads before, they're foam ink pads and they're very juicy, so you don't need to like stamp particularly hard to get a good impression. I know one of my friends who hadn't used them before had basically mentioned that like when she used them for the first time, she didn't realize that if you put your hand in them, you will get ink everywhere. So I'm just going to center this. You can, of course, do whatever you want. Could even reimagine this as a vertical card, but same thing. I'm just going to stamp down and off we go. And I stamped correctly twice in a row. And that's kind of surprising, but in a good way. Anyway, so the only other thing that I did on the example card is to just add a little color to the lemon. Um, in the box, you'll find some of these new detail blenders if those are your jam. Because I thought they would be easier for both doing this lemon and if you want to ink edge these lemons. Since I'm at home, I will just grab a blending brush, which I had here anyway. And you have two colors you could pick to work with, depending. The lemongrass is a lot more lemon yellow. The glitz is more of this sort of undertone yellow. I kind of like the glitz better. Some of that was if you look at this original card, the yellow that was die cut out of was a little bit darker than what we're actually getting in the kit. So, it depends. Well, just for the sake of being different, let's try this yellow, which has an interesting wow, this has a really interesting vibe. It's interesting. It has the inkhead itself has almost a blue shift, which is fascinating. Let's just see if we can do a quick swatch just to get a sense of this a little bit as to how this ink will work out. Yeah, so this is going to be a much more lemony yellow color. The glitz is going to give you more of that undertone color. So anyway, I'm just going to blend a little. I'm just basically putting my brush down in the center and then just working it out a little bit. I do like that. That is a good vibe. Anyway, so basically the inside is done. Um, Given the size of the sentiment, I think you could make it more of a you could make the card more this orientation if desired. So I'm just going to set this off to the side. Let's see. We have done stamp it this, stamp the sentiment, and then all we have to do is put this on the inside of the card. So we can do that quickly. I'm just going to grab some ATG. And there we are. In the instructions, I also mentioned that, like, if you want to just stamp this in a black ink of your preference and then just go in and color it with a coloring medium of your choice, feel free to do that as well. You could also stamp this in black if you wanted to go in a different color direction with the actual inside of the card. Anyway, so inside of the card is done. So what do we have to do next? Um, we have to make some decisions about our pattern paper strips. So the way the original is configured and essentially how this goes together is that you basically just want to make a border out of these and then offset them. And you can kind of play with the spacing a little bit to sort of figuring out what kind of a vibe you want in terms of like how much spacing is left where. I kind of went for the center, I think, when I worked on this. Yeah. If you want more space, you can certainly trim these down further or do other things with them. Because you could certainly you could cut these into squares and do more of a tiled look or a bunch of other stuff. Anyway, this is basically what we're going for. The one thing I will mention is the backside of these is a slightly lighter blue. So if you want more of a that kind of a vibe, you can do that. You could also do the whole thing in blue if you wanted to view more of a monochromatic card. I really like the lemon, so I'm gonna go with that. So basically just pick one place to start. I usually pick a corner, and then you can kind of mirror that spacing everywhere else. This lemon paper is pretty non-directional, so that also makes it easy. And I'm just using wet glue 'cause it's my favorite. Um, if you do get wet glue on the card, you can just wipe it off. The one I'm using is a PVA glue, so it'll dry matte and it won't be particularly noticeable. But we're just gonna go in and do all of those. Being somewhat mindful of keeping things aligned. Shift this one over slightly just because there's a little extra room there. Anyway, and then we have the last one. Sort of in the middle. There we go. Pretty good. Alignment on this piece is a little wonky, but I think I'll leave it. I believe next we glue down. Yeah, that next we do the smaller white piece that just goes in the center here. The original sketch for this is from Kendra Morgan. I'll link to her page down below in case you're interested. She does a quarterly card making challenge that's free for the current challenge. This is one out of their archive, so you could get it as a $5 patron on her site, certainly. I guess it should say on her site on Patreon. And there we go. Then we are going to make a decision about where we want our lemons. We could add some more ink to these. I kind of like them as they are. Like I like how the tone is a little bit different. And this strategically, if you have any like really weird spots, like if I kind of don't love that transition, so I might, do these more this way so you can cut if any of these seams look super wonky and you're not a fan, you can sort of cover those up, which we can do here too. So you can move these around a little bit. I kind of like it with the original. I like it a little balanced, but it's up to you, obviously. And there are extra pieces if for any reason you can't find a lemon, or if you need a third lemon, there's a couple extras floating around in the bag inside the project box. There we go. Okay, so our lemons are down. And there's a couple different things we can do with these hellos. The original card example card just has a single one down, which I like because this is the same color as the card base. So it creates kind of this interesting, maybe you cut it out or maybe you didn't thing. If you like a little more dimension, I did include a white piece you can use to basically back this and then I'll pop it up a little bit, which is my personal preference. So I think we will do that on this card. Just go in with a little bit more wet glue. Just putting a little bit on top of this hello, and then I'm just going to align the blue hello on top. Another option here is if you wanted to make it more of a yellow card, you could certainly omit the blue hello entirely and just sort of use one of the yellow inks provided to turn it yellow. But I'm a big fan of yellow and blue, and lemons for that matter. So with it popped up a little bit, I think that is a kind of a neat look. There we go. A little more wet glue, and we're basically done. The only thing else you could potentially do is decide if you want to do anything with the sequins. Obviously, you could sort of maybe boop a couple around the hello because we didn't use them on the example card. So let's sort of decide. Just gonna dump these out onto my block to sort of keep them semi-contained and grab a pokey tool. These have sort of a concave side and a convex side, just FYI. I believe one of them has the sort of iridescent shift. So let's do two and then maybe one over here. Let's do it like that. Do that. I think I'll do a big one, a big one, and a little one. There are actually three sizes here. I think we'll just leave it like that. Leave this to dry for a moment. And let's just put these back in case we need them. There are all sorts of extra sequins in the box as well. So if you want to go ham with the sequins, feel free. Anyway, that is the My Mingle card for 2024. And this is the one we just made, and then here's the original just for comparison, and I hope you enjoy the project.